Leaders of Austria's FPÖ and ÖVP met with President Alexander Van der Bellen after coalition talks seemed to stall. The European Union will respond to the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imposed by US President Donald Trump. US Vice President J.D. Vance warned against what he called excessive regulation of AI at the AI Action Summit in Paris. Leaders of Austria's far-right FPÖ and conservative ÖVP met with President Alexander Van der Bellen on Tuesday after coalition talks seemed to stall. Critical voices from the ÖVP raised increasing doubts throughout the day about a successful conclusion of the talks. FPÖ's Herbert Kickl and ÖVP's Christian Stocker met at separate times with the president at his office in Vienna's Hofburg. Ahead of Tuesday's talks, Kickl still seemed positive.
Ich war letzte Woche optimistisch, ich bin diese Woche optimistisch. Schauen Sie, es geht um ganz, ganz wichtige Dinge für Österreich. Wir wissen, die Wirtschaft ist in einer sehr, sehr schwierigen Situation. Das betrifft die Arbeitgeber, das betrifft die Arbeitnehmer, die Arbeitslosigkeit steigt. Wir stehen vor großen Herausforderungen im Zusammenhang mit den Energiepreisen, mit der Teuerung. Und wir brauchen natürlich auch eine Kehrtwende, eine Trendwende in der gesamten Asyl- und Migrationspolitik.
Points of conflict include the suspension of the right of asylum demanded by the FPÖ, as well as Kickl's critical stance towards the European Union. Earlier, other parties that gained seats in the parliamentary election told the ÖVP it should end coalition talks with the FPÖ. The European Union will respond to the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imposed by US President Donald Trump. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has assured in a statement that unjustified tariffs on the EU will not go unanswered and will be met with firm and proportionate countermeasures. According to von der Leyen, the EU will act to defend its economic interests and protect its workers and businesses. Von der Leyen has not yet specified how the EU will defend itself against US tariffs. However, her message has received support from a large number of MEPs. But not the Patriots for Europe, who believe the Green Deal is partly to blame.
Quiero proteger a nuestros productores de aceite, a los de tomate, a nuestro sector pesquero, al productor de cebolla y al del acero, el del aluminio o al de los coches. Y lo que ha hecho la Comisión von der Leyen es dejar a los nuestros desamparados. Eso es lo que nosotros queremos. ¿Cuál es la mejor medida? Pues que la tomen los que gobiernan. Pero en cualquier caso no tomemos medidas que perjudiquen a los nuestros.
In 2018, Brussels responded to Trump's tariffs with similar measures on US steel and aluminium, something that could be done again. US Vice President J.D. Vance warned against what he called excessive regulation of AI at the AI Action Summit in Paris on Tuesday. Vance's address challenged Europe's regulatory approach to artificial intelligence and its moderation of content on big tech platforms, saying it would cripple the fast-growing industry.
Now, we invite your countries to work with us and to follow that model if it makes sense for your nations. However, the Trump administration is troubled by reports that some foreign governments are considering tightening the screws on U.S. tech companies with international footprints. Now, America cannot and will not accept that, and we think it's a terrible mistake, not just for the United States of America, but for your own countries.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced that Europe will mobilize 200 billion euros for investment in artificial intelligence. She stressed that AI is a force for good as long as its benefits are widespread and accessible to all. The summit underscores a three-way race for AI supremacy: Europe striving to regulate and invest, China expanding access through state-backed tech giants, and the US under Trump prioritizing a hands-off approach.
Following the weekend's cut from the Russian power grid, electricity prices in the Baltic region have started to rise rapidly. This is due to low winds, no sun, and the increase in gas prices. Over the weekend, Estonia switched off from the Russian grid and hooked up to the European system. Since then, the price of electricity in Estonia has started to climb. Experts say the price hike is mainly due to less wind, higher electricity consumption due to colder weather, and a slight increase in gas price. However, there are also fewer connections than usual in the Baltic region. An underwater cable between Lithuania and Sweden was damaged by an anchor and put out of service. If it were operational, prices would be significantly cheaper.
Female genital mutilation is a reality in Europe. 600,000 girls and women, mainly from Africa and Asia, have been subjected to it. Worldwide, the figure is around 230 million. FGM refers to the partial or total removal of female external genitals for non-medical reasons. Different ways of preventing this form of gender-based violence were explored at a conference held in the European Parliament.
So it would be wrong to say FGM is made in Europe. FGM can happen anywhere. People can have it done in their countries before they move over. People can be imported back to their countries to go and get cut. Some families are importing even the older cutters from their country to come and get cut in Europe. It can happen anywhere. That's the bottom line. It's a very harmful practice. It can happen anywhere. It needs to be eradicated.
But despite progress being made in breaking the taboo, there is still a long way to go. Superstitions and social pressure remain deeply rooted in some societies, and families who oppose this practice risk ostracization.
I do think that we are starting to really wake up and to know that something about it is wrong. Maybe not everyone, not every girl knows what specifically is wrong about it, but a lot of them, if not all of them, don't want this practice to be done to them.
Given the scale of the issue, this Italian MEP calls for raising awareness on this subject in Europe, especially among education and healthcare workers.
Bisogna assolutamente andare a formare il personale sanitario, perché all'interno del pronto soccorsi, all'interno degli ospedali, nella cura quotidiana da parte degli specialisti è necessario andare a riconoscere i segni della violenza per segnalarla e consentire alla donna di non rimanere sola e di affrontare quindi al meglio la sua sicurezza sanitaria, ma anche la sua sicurezza e tranquillità e serenità psicologica.
Last year, the EU adopted a directive that requires member states to include FGM as a specific criminal offence in their penal codes.
Hundreds of migrants were rescued off the coast of the Canary Islands. Most of the 389 migrants were men, but there were also 46 women and 5 minors on board, according to local authorities. 5 of the rescued boats were heading to Lanzarote, while 2 were heading to the island of El Hierro. More than 43,000 migrants arrived to the Canary Islands in 2024, a record-breaking figure. Last year, European politics took a turn to the right, particularly after EU elections in June. As such, many EU member states have started to update their migration policies, just as migration also comes to the top of the European Council's agenda. In a letter to EU member states, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen proposed speeding up the return of asylum seekers and opening detention centres in third countries.
With the deportation debate fueling polarisation in Germany ahead of the snap election in less than 2 weeks, both established political and populist parties are promising quicker deportations and stricter migration controls. Christian Democratic Union interior politician Christoph de Vries says the current EU deportation model is dysfunctional and says change is urgently needed.
Wissen Sie, ich glaube, man muss in der Diskussion mal eins ganz offen und ehrlich sagen. Die Rückführungen funktionieren in keinem Mitgliedstaat der Europäischen Union wirklich zufriedenstellend. Und das führt uns in der CDU zu der Erkenntnis, dass wir die illegalen Einreisen nach Deutschland, aber vor allen Dingen insgesamt nach Europa stoppen müssen, weil wir ja sehen, wie schwer die Rückführungen sind. Und wenn die Menschen erstmal eingereist sind, sind die rechtlichen und tatsächlichen Hürden für die Abschiebung so groß, dass wir das niemals so zufriedenstellend hinbekommen werden, wie das eigentlich notwendig und wünschenswert wäre.
According to figures from the German Interior Ministry, 60% of deportations fail in Germany every year. The German police unions say there aren't enough detention spaces to carry out deportations properly.
Wir müssen letztendlich europäisch arbeiten. Das heißt, wir müssen alle Länder in der Europäischen Union an einen Tisch bekommen, sodass wir letztendlich eine Vorgehensweise haben. Gleiche Bedingungen für alle Menschen, die bei uns Asyl und letztendlich Schutzersuchen stellen. Wir brauchen einen klaren Verteilungsschlüssel für alle und wir müssen unsere europäischen Außengrenzen viel besser schützen. Hier bedarf es Frontex, die stark aufgestockt werden müssen, die europäischen Außengrenzen mit den jeweiligen Ländern besser schützen, um letztendlich dadurch die Reisefreiheit innerhalb von Europa nicht zu gefährden.
Legal expert Daniel Time says the system doesn't work because of poor interagency cooperation and high levels of cases.
Deutschland ist ein Einwanderungsland, das braucht. Aber wir müssen wahrscheinlich wirklich unterscheiden zwischen Fachkräfteeinwanderung, qualifizierte Leute, die im Ausland die Sprache lernen, dann nach Deutschland kommen, von Anfang an arbeiten, Geld verdienen, in der eigenen Wohnung wohnen und eine Asylmigration, die häufig, das zeigen uns die Statistiken, leider gering qualifiziert ist, wo die Leute kein Deutsch sprechen, dann erstmal arbeitslos sind, vom Staat untergebracht werden und auch die durchaus sehr großzügigen deutschen Sozialleistungen in Anspruch nehmen. Das sind zwei ganz unterschiedliche Formen von Migration. Und ich befürchte, dass dieser negative Asyldiskurs die absolut notwendige positive Einstellung zu Fachkräftemigration untergräbt.
Liv Stroud in Berlin for Euronews.